Welcome back everybody to another one in my aviation history series, and this is going to be episode 9 in my history of the RCAF. Now in this video we're going to be looking at the history of 406 Squadron. Now 406 Squadron was the 5th RCAF unit to be started overseas and was actually the first that was a dedicated night fighter unit. But before we get too far into this, my name is Sean and this is Sean's Aviation. Now, if you've been watching these videos in the proper order, you'll notice that 406 Squadron actually gets formed out of order, it being the 5th rather than the 4th Squadron being formed overseas. Now, the reason for this being out of order is because while 406 Squadron was formed on May 10th, 1941, 407 Squadron beat them by 2 days and was formed on May 8th. So 406 Squadron's first base was at Acklington, and they were formed as part of 13 Wing and given the squadron code HU. They received their first aircraft, WWII Mark I and Mark IVs, immediately after forming, and they began training up for the night fighter role. In June of 1941, they traded their WWIIs for Beaufighter Mark IIFs and Mark VIFs. They flew their first mission on June 17th, when 2 WWIIs were scrambled with no action being seen. Their first kill was logged in September of 1941, when Flight Officer R.C. Firmerton shot down a Junkers 88 over Bedlington while flying Beaufighter Mark II R2336. On February 1st, 1942, the unit relocated to Air Scotland for a short time, moving down to Squadron on June 16th. While at Squadron in August, the unit retired their Beaufighter Mark IIs, but continued to fly the Beaufighter Mark VI. On September 4th, the unit moved over to 10 Group and relocated to Predenac before moving on to Middle Wallop on December 8th. On March 31st of 1943, the unit transferred to 9 Group and moved to Anglesey in Wales. They stayed there until November 14th, when they moved to Exeter, rejoining 10 Group. On April 15th of 1944, they moved to Winkley, and around this time they began to receive their first Mosquito Mark 12s and began training on these aircraft, the Mosquito being unforgiving to inexperienced pilots. In July, they relinquished their Mark 12s, receiving Mosquito Mark 30s in their place, and by August, all the Beaufighters had been retired. On September 17th, they moved to Culloden, and then on November 27th, they moved again to Manston and transferred over to 11 Group. This move marked a change in the squadron's role as they began to fly offensive intruder missions as opposed to defensive missions, with their first intruder mission being flown on December 5th. This mission, however, was not completed due to weather. The squadron flew its final operational mission of the war on May 9th, 1945, flying cover for the liberation of the Channel Islands. The unit moved to Predenac on June 14th, coming back under 10 Group, and they stayed there until September 1st of 1945, when the unit was officially disbanded. During the war, the unit flew 1,835 sorties, logging 4,552 operational hours. They were credited with 64 aircraft destroyed, 7 probables, and 47 damaged, and was considered the highest scoring RCAF night fighter unit of the war. It was also credited with 88 locomotives destroyed, and at least 8 freight cars, and 32 vehicles, and 7 small vessels. It suffered 11 aircraft lost, with 20 aircrew killed or missing. The post-war life of 406 Squadron began on April 1st, 1947, when it was formed at Saskatoon as an auxiliary light bomber unit and was assigned the unit code AH. It received its first aircraft, Harvard Mark IIs, in May and began training. It got its first bomber aircraft, Mitchell Mark IIIs, in June of 1948. In 1951, the unit lost the AH code and, for reasons I cannot seem to find, got 2 codes, QP and YX. In October of that year, the squadron gave up their Harvards and flew a strictly Mitchell fleet. On September 3rd of 1952, the unit was renamed 406 City of Saskatoon Auxiliary Light Bomber Squadron. In September of 1956, the unit started to receive a few Silver Stars to help with pilot training. It is very hard to find pictures of 406 Silver Stars, but you can just make one out sitting in the middle of all of these B-25s. On April 1st of 1958, the unit was redesignated as 406 City of Saskatoon Auxiliary Light Transport Unit, and they began to receive expediters, and by June of 1958, both the Mitchell and the Silver Stars were retired. In February of 1961, 406 got their first Otters to complement the fleet, and they flew both types of aircraft until April of 1964. On April 1st, 1964, with a general drawdown of the RCAF's auxiliary squadrons, 406 Squadron was disbanded. It was eventually reformed at CFB Shearwater on July 12th of 1972 as a maritime operational training squadron, amalgamating a number of Royal Canadian Navy training units into a single entity and training RCAF personnel on the CH-124 Sea King and CP-121 Tracker. In 1981, the active tracker unit relocated to CFB Summerside, and 406 Squadron was left with only the CH-124 Sea King in its fleet. In February of 2010, the first CH-148 Cyclone arrived at CFB Shearwater, and 406 Squadron got to business training on the new aircraft. The last Sea King left the unit in 2016, and they flew only the CH-148. So 406 Squadron is the sole operational training unit for the CH-148 Cyclone and supports both active Cyclone units, which is 423 on the east and 443 on the west coast. With the CH-148 just entering service with the RCAF and has many more years to go, I suspect that 406 Squadron will be around for quite a while, keeping this aircraft and the airmen that fly them in the air. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Thank you for watching, guys, and as always, if you are interested in any of the content you see, you can access my website at www.seans-aviation.com. You can see all the latest pictures of aircraft and museums and the build logs of all of my current models and past models on that site. And if you're interested in any of this content, please click the subscribe button here on YouTube to follow more. Thank you very much, and see you guys next time.